Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, in this video, we are going to be talking about the credible threat theory yet again. This is the theory that I have been trying to share on my channel for, I don't know, years and years now. But this is the main policy coming from the Federal Reserve, is the use of their words. And it's not so much about their actions, although that is important in the adjustment of interest rates will have an impact on the economy. It's really more about what it is that they are communicating out there to the public. Recently, we have had a speech coming just yesterday from Philip Jefferson. Again, this is a voting member of the FOMC. This is dated February 21st, 2025. The title of this speech is Reading Between the Lines, Textual Analysis of Central Bank Communications. Now, what I went and did is I didn't read the whole speech. I just kind of read the very first, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs of it, to kind of get an idea of what it is that he was trying to communicate within this speech. I recognized right away that he was talking about the credible threat theory. And so when I went and looked at like some of the mainstream media articles, they did communicate about this particular speech in that it was more about how it is that they are using the AI analysis to then project through their communications, their monetary policy, but it was really geared more to how they are viewing the new analysis. And this speech does cover that. But I'm going to read the very beginning of this speech because I think it is very, very telling. All right. So, in fact, I'm just going to skip to the second paragraph here. It says, my talk is organized as follows. Again, this is Philip Jefferson saying this. Oops, my battery is running low on this. It says, my talk is organized as follows. First, I will briefly discuss central bank communication and its effect on asset prices. Right there. I mean, right at the very beginning of this speech, he just straight up admitted that their communications have a profound impact on asset prices. I will read it again. I will briefly discuss central bank communication and its effect on asset prices. I guess I added profound, but anyway. Next, I will discuss how recent advances in automated textual analysis may be having an impact on how information in central bank communication is incorporated into asset prices. Again, how their communication is then incorporated into asset prices. I think about this. This is about their communication, not about their actions. This is talking about how they are communicating. Then I will review how research and market participants use textual analysis techniques, among other techniques, to gauge who is listening to central bank communications, right? Who is listening, and to understand how monetary policy is transmitted into the economy. See, again, like I think about how it is that the Federal Reserve had lost control of their monetary policy during the great financial crisis when the Fed funds rate hit zero. They knew that they were going to have to use their words. Forward guidance, jawboning, but it went far deeper than that. Most people look at forward guidance as them communicating what they're going to do with interest rate adjustments, but it's much, much deeper than that. This is a psyops game that is being played that if you're not recognizing it, it is very difficult to see. And since they are not teaching anybody how this works, you have to learn it for yourself. All right, I'm going to go on here. Before concluding, I will broaden my coverage and discuss how textual analysis tools can be used to estimate difficult to measure concepts in economics such as uncertainty and supply chain disruptions. Now, anybody who's followed my channel for any length of time, you've heard me talk a lot about supply chain breakdowns. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. I got bad connection here. It's like just out of reach of the Wi-Fi or something. Okay, so we'll continue on. These new textual analysis techniques are important to me as a policymaker because I want to understand how our communications are being heard, interpreted, and understood and acted upon. All right? And this is important because these are all the things that they are talking about, not their actions as far as adjustment of interest rates or any of that stuff. That doesn't have anything to do with what he's talking about here. All right, I'm going to read a little bit more from this. It goes, central bank communications and its effects on financial markets. Former Fed Chair Ben Bernanke often highlight the importance of central bank communication, saying that monetary policy is 98% talk and 2% action. How many times have I tried to communicate this? For over 20 years now, they have known that they were going to be facing this situation in which that their monetary policy through the adjustment of the Fed funds rate was no longer going to be an effective tool, and that they were going to have to use their words to guide markets. This speech is breaking that down. This speech was given yesterday. All right. Now, for those of you who have become a member of the channel, you know that we do member-only live streams where we break down these Federal Reserve speeches. I am going to do that tonight around 8 o'clock or so. I will leave a link down in the, or there is a link down in the description to become a member of the channel. It's literally $1 a month. You will have access to all the member-only videos that we have done that will break down these speeches, including this one. We are going to go through it word for word so that we can understand exactly what it is that Philip Jefferson is trying to say about monetary policy when it comes to using their words, using that credible threat theory that I have tried to explain time and time again. This is an obvious sign that it has taken place. Again, I left a link down in the description. You can go and read the speech for yourself, internalize all that information, or you can come back and join us in a members-only live stream where we'll break down this speech word for word so that you can understand exactly what it is that he is talking about inside of this. All right, let's see. That's about to be my Saturday night plans then. All right, Andrea, looking forward to it. All right, I just parked. Welcome, everyone. All righty, all-nighter. It's great to see you. All right, Wheel of Death. Is that a European car, i.e. right-hand drive? No, for some reason when the app updated, for some reason it flipped the camera, and I thought I had, adjusted that back to the way it's supposed to be, but apparently I didn't, so... All right. Comfy. I like the fabric. I don't know. It's an old truck, so yeah, it's comfortable. Total BS and taken out of context. Chonky? Absolutely not. I have proof time and time and time again, over and over again, how it is that they are using this credible threat theory. I sat on stage and presented it at Zuber's conference. Every single bit of evidence and piece of information that I am delivering to back up what I am saying comes directly from the Federal Reserve. I literally have dozens upon dozens of speeches that I can use to confirm everything that I have said. I mean, it's not BS. It's not taken out of context. I mean, here, hold on. Do I have enough power on here? Where is it? Let me bring it up here. Files. See here, downloads. Credible threat theory. All right. Here we go. Ben Bernanke. The conclusion that deflation is always reversible under a fiat system follows from the basic economic reasoning. A little parable may prove useful today. An ounce of gold sells for $300 more or less. Now suppose that a modern alchemist solves his subject's oldest problem by finding a way to produce unlimited amounts. Begin massive production of gold within days. What would happen to the price of gold? Presumably, the potentially unlimited supply of cheap gold will cause the market price of gold to plummet. Indeed, if the market for gold is to any degree efficient, the price of gold will collapse immediately after announcement of the invention before the alchemists have produced and marketed a single ounce of the yellow metal. That is the monetary policy that the Federal Reserve is using. Straight up. Right? It's not about the interest rate adjustments. He even said it right before that paragraph. He says, as I have mentioned, some observers have concluded that when central bank policy rate falls to zero, its practical minimum, monetary policy loses its ability to further stimulate aggregate demand and the economy. See, boom, ran out of monetary policy, doesn't work anymore. They failed. They effed up, right? Long time ago. But they said, nah, we didn't really F up. We just got another tool that we're going to have to use. That whole adjustment of interest rates, since we hit the lower bound of zero, no longer being an effective tool, not a problem. All right? What does he say here? as I mentioned, at a conceptual level, and in my view, in practice as well, this conclusion is clearly mistaken. Indeed, under a fiat, that is paper money system, a government in practice with the central bank in cooperation with other agencies should always be able to generate increased nominal spending and inflation even when the short-term nominal interest rate is at zero. And then he goes on to describe the gold machine. Absolutely, this is not taken out of context. I got it 100%. There is nobody out there on the internet who has got monetary policy dialed in as good as I have. Period. End of story. I don't care who it is. I will debate anybody on this. I mean, anytime, anywhere, I don't care who it is. I will go to the Federal Reserve and debate anybody there and pull questions out of them that will then expose this exact thing. All right? I don't know how many times I've tried to prove it, but, you know. All right, I'm going to be diagnosing my grandma's electric outage. I'll be a bit distant for a while. Keep the ear candy coming. You got it, all-nighter. Thank you for sticking around, too, brother. All right. Hey, dishes. We got dishes up in the house. Nice to see you, mamas. What's up, guys? That's coming from Eric V. Thank you so much for being here, brother. Talk to your congressman. I don't need to talk to my congressman. There's nothing that Congress can do. And that's the thing. Like, there's some things, like, once you understand the economic policies, once you understand the economic forces, the monetary policies and the economic forces that are out there, it really starts to make things a lot easier to understand. Like, there's two topics that I am not allowed to talk about on this channel without getting demonetized, right? And I don't know why, and I don't even want to use the words that describe them, because of how there's three things that I have found that will kill the algorithm and demonetize the channel, right? One of them is talking about ending a particular non-government agency, a particular bank, right? If you use a particular very well-known term for it, the algorithm will kill the video, right? And you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't care if you type it into the comments, that's fine. But I'm just not going to say it, right? If I talk about people who have no place to live, living on the street, I use a particular term to describe that, which everybody uses, my video will get demonetized or I'll lose the algorithm, right? Again, talking about people who have no place to live, living on the streets, right? Using particular terms that describe those people, done, right? The other one is the industry derived from, God, how do I even say it? I don't even want to use the word, right? But basically the industry that everybody thought once the states became legal that it was just going to be like this booming industry and just bring all kinds of revenue to people, and the particular stocks in those companies that were taking advantage of the legalizing of this particular product inside of these states. Okay, again, I don't want to say any of this stuff because I don't want to kill the algorithm, but those three topics will absolutely destroy my YouTube algorithm as far as spreading the video around or the monetizing of it. Isn't that strange? I could talk about anything else. It doesn't do anything. In fact, if I talk about stuff that is completely superficial and hasn't actually happened, that will actually, boom, I'll get all kinds of views off of it. All right? If I talk about what ifs. All right, moving on. All right, what is the first one? The ending of a particular bank. Right? They claim to be a government agency, or people think it is, it's not, right? By using that term, it will absolutely kill the algorithm. I've done it several times. I've tested it. Right? If you say it once, it's probably not a big deal, but over and over again. Right? Not sure the first one. How can you not be? The ending of the, right? There it is. All right. I get kicked off of YouTube regularly. All right. There it is. ProView82's got it. He's got it dialed in. All right, you got it. And that's what's funny about this is, like, I knew a long time ago, following like the things that I understand about economics and the economic forces that I have learned, like talking about that particular industry, that one that was supposed to be like just a super booming, growing business when the states legalized it, like that was like, I was like, no, it's not. It is going to be a horrible investment. Do not fall for this, right? But everybody was like stuck in their mind. They thought, oh no, look how much demand there is for it, and look how expensive it is. And what I think a lot of people fail to understand is that that particular industry was only expensive because it was illegal. With risk comes reward, right? If you make something illegal, you're going to cause the value of it to go way up. I mean, you think about it, firearms, drugs, sex, anything you make illegal, you're talking about increasing the price of it dramatically. And so when I think about like what this particular industry meant, it meant that a whole lot of people were going to have access to the ability to produce it themselves. Because unlike a lot of other products out there, like if you were to go out there and make beer, right? You have to really know what the hell you're doing in order to make good beer, right? And even people who are like know how to do it, if you were to follow somebody's instructions, like, hey, I know how to do this, let me give you the instructions to do it, and you follow it to a T, it's not going to taste as good. It's not going to be as good as this brewer can do it. That brewer is a craftsman in itself, right? Not the same for growing stuff, right? I mean, there is people out there who can grow great quality, great quantity, but when it can do it on its own, then that's hard to compete against, right? So, this is like that's not an industry that could ever possibly have been profitable. Not in that sense, right? I mean, it does in the initial, like in the very beginning, it does because it's very limited, right? But once it's overabundant, it's over. What are we talking about? I thought we were talking about something else here. Talking about the credible threat theory coming from the Federal Reserve. How far are we into the 17 minutes, 170 views? Okay, too much regulation, not enough access to capital and borrowing. What are you talking about? All right, I once said, okay, buddy boy, and was given a timeout. Well, hey, if you don't want to be here, maybe then don't comment like you don't want to be here. All right. That's a good way to put it. Beer can't grow itself. We can. Yeah, absolutely. And that's and I think that's like the biggest misconception that a lot of people have when it came to that industry. It was just like you do realize that once it's legal, then there's no risk to it anymore. Without the risk, there is no reward, there's no value, right? There's nothing in it that's valuable. I mean, when it comes to the medicinal part of things, that's different. There's a pretty powerful medicine within it, but that's like, a very insignificant amount of the actual product that is coming from that industry. Like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty significant. A lot of people use it, but the majority of it is all about, elevating their senses. All right. Or depressing them, whatever you want to look at it. Okay. Sanding drywall today on a house I just bought for $75,000. Right on. What do you think is going to happen with lumber prices in 2025? I have no idea because you know what? I don't understand. I don't know exactly what it is that is planned to try and deal with the housing issues. Like I'm trying to phrase this right. Like, okay, I don't understand what it is that they're doing here in Oregon. Okay, I've said this before, right? I don't understand this because we have a significant issue happening here in our state. Now, all kinds of people, and you're going to find it here in the comment section, and it's just like it's your liberal politics. Got it. Okay, I hear it. The answer to the problem is not something that's going to come from a political decision that is made, right? There's no fixing that problem. Understanding the problem is coming from why it is occurring, right? And if you just want to blame it on liberal politics, that's fine, and then you can just wash your hands of understanding it all. But it has to go much deeper than that to understand that there is an underlying economic force that has taken place. The separation between the rich and the poor is growing dramatically more. And now when I think about what it is that a lot of the effort is going into to try and bring people into a home, right? People who don't have a home, trying to get them into a home, all the effort increases the demand, right? It increases demand. And even though they were here in our state, hundreds of millions of dollars were put forth to try and deal with this particular issue, it is now gone, and it's emergency needing of $100 million more. in order to continue services and for this particular group. Again, I'm trying to be very careful with the words so I don't kill my algorithm, right? But this is what's happening in our state. So I don't understand it. Like, I mean, I understand what's going on. I understand that people want to help. I understand that there's not a lot of services out there that are going to help people unless people actually step up and start doing something like providing beds and, places to eat or whatever it is. I get all that part. My problem that I am now facing is that the people who have changed the environment here aren't going to change their behaviors that will actually fix the situation. See, it's the luxurious experiences of the people who have now become the property owners here that has driven up the prices of everything that makes a regular 9-to-5 job incapable of making ends meet. That's the problem. You can throw $1 billion at the problem. Once the $1 billion has been consumed, you're back to the exact same underlying problem that was there before you started throwing money at it. So, I mean, we can continue to keep throwing money at this problem saying, well, we got to do something, And it was like, okay, well, I understand you got to do something. That's fine, but you do understand that once that money's gone, you're going to have to come up with a bunch more, right? Because what's going to end up happening is all the people who are relying on those services, if you're not going to give them those services, well, they're going to start spreading out to the other outlying areas. They're going to go in search of some services. And so now the rest of the state has to absorb what it is that's not being provided for them in this particular area, considering they've already spent hundreds of millions of dollars on it. You see where I'm getting? It's like, okay, does anybody want to actually take into consideration that it's the property owners and their luxurious experiences and the fact that they're paying so much for that house and demanding that they have nice things and places to go to that has now separated and created the inequality of mass proportions here? I mean, that's what's really going on. I mean, we can blame it on liberal politics all day long. It's fine, right? But this is what the underlying economic force is doing. All right. Nate B, thank you so much for the $2. Are Fed layoffs and DOGE? Okay, we got to understand Fed and federal government, like the Federal Reserve and the federal government are two different things. It's so funny when you read articles or something like that, and it's so slight, right? But if you use the term Fed, you're talking about the Federal Reserve. If you use the term Feds with an S on the end, you're talking about the federal government, right? Those are two different things. And it's important to do that because the Federal Reserve, I don't think, is laying off anybody, but the federal government is with their whole DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency or whatever. So is that a credible threat? Or absolutely, it's a credible threat, but it's also very credible that it could take place. So when we think about if you were to say, hey, man, you're not doing well here at our facility. You're like a cog that doesn't fit in our machine. Really, if we have to, we're gonna have to let you go. But it would be better if you just kind of walked away and just resigned or stepped away from this position, and that way, everybody is in cool terms, and we'll write you a decent letter of recommendation. But you're gonna have to go, right? If all of a sudden you were presented with this position, it hasn't happened yet, but it's a credible threat, right? What one would you might take? If you would sit there, no, screw it, you're gonna have to fire me, sucker, right? Or is people gonna be like, no, I think I might skip out while I can, if I can get the opportunity, especially if I'm getting, any kind of severance or something of that nature kind of coming with it. But again, until it actually happens, if somebody comes up and says, hey, bro, I need to talk to you, you're fired, right? That's a whole different story, right? There was no communication about that coming up. You just all of a sudden snap, there you are. This is where I feel that the difference between somebody who is genuinely, if I could even say the word, who is serious about their intentions. If you're serious about the intentions, you don't talk about it, you just go do it. Okay? I mean, if it was hey, I'm gonna, inflict these, why do you keep talking about it? Just do it, right? I mean, in fact, it's better to just do it and not say anything about it, hit them with the shock and awe event, because then that's taken more seriously. Everything you communicate after that would be taken very seriously. But if you keep throwing credible threats out there and then not really pull them off, like, and not really come through with the threat of it, then people are going to eventually just get to the point that they are going to be very confused about what it is that is taking place out there. Very much like what we have today. They're always going to take the credible threat. Always. Right? Now, some people may believe it and some people won't. Like, I don't. I don't listen to anything that really the president, I never listened to a single word Biden said. Right? Like, all these people are like, Biden's going to destroy America. And I'm like, okay. Well, I wouldn't know because I haven't listened to anything he's ever said. So, I mean, your America might get destroyed from it. My America is a different place that I recognize has not been the America that we had with the constitutional republic for a very long time. So I don't expect it to be that of what would be considered an American, like, way of life. This isn't it. That's gone, right? So we have a whole new way of style of living life that is so different from what anybody had ever imagined, considering that we used to have a strong middle class. Like, people are like, how do we bring that back? And I'm like, well, what produced the middle class? Right? Producers, savers. We don't live in a producing, saving nation. All these people are like, oh, that DOGE stimulus, which doesn't exist. And they're like, no, that's not new money coming in. I'm like, if the government continues to go deeper into debt, it is definitely new money. No other way of looking at it. Like, if you were to, like, go and with this Department of Government Efficiency and hack all these government programs, hack all these employees, hack all this shit, and then say, okay, we have now solved the deficit problem. We are breaking even, right? And then you had to go and issue a stimulus check that would increase the debt, and it would definitely be new money. Right? What you would have to do is then be solving the debt. We would have to be shrinking the debt, and then a stimulus wouldn't be new money. Right? Because the government is shrinking the debt, shrinking the money supply. Right? And then that wouldn't be new money coming in. But that's not the way people see it. They say, oh, no, they're going to take it from here and hand it over there. And I was like, I don't care if you take it from here and hand it over to there. Right? It's still new money coming into the system. It was new money coming to them, and now it's new money going to you. And that's going to create inequality. And if you were rich as hell, you would definitely want that to happen. You would definitely say, oh, we definitely need to help these people out, and they need a lot of stimulus. Go ahead and give it to them. Or in the money, property prices, all my stocks, everything else is moving up with that stimulus package. I mean, they would, like, I'm in a position in which that I would benefit from it, so I'm okay. Let's do it. All right, moving on. William G., atheist number 1. Thank you for the $5 Canadian. Something that seems to be gaining traction is the EU, Britain, and a few others are now getting serious about ending Bretton Woods' impact, if any. Again, I doubt it. Right? Okay, let's even think about it for just a second. Like, the whole idea that the dollar as the world reserve currency, like, even if people didn't want it, like I don't want to use it anymore, I'm not going to do it, right? And that's fine. And it was just like, okay, don't use it. What are you going to use? Because there's nothing else, right? I mean, there are other currencies out there, but there's not enough to perform all the transactions that the dollar is doing. Like, there are transactions that are happening every single day. Every one of those transactions are happening in dollars. If you were to transfer that out of the dollar into something else, there is literally not enough currency in the other nations and what they are providing to facilitate all those transactions. And I know that's difficult. That's probably hard for a lot of people to internalize and think about. You know, it's like imagining, like, you know, I tried to use the analogy of, like, filling up at the gas station. And if you're filling up at the gas station, like, the gas that you are buying, if you can imagine that as like all the commodities around the world, right? And now you want to buy all these commodities of around the world, which is essentially the gas that you're putting in your car, and you open up your wallet and you say, okay, I'm not going to use the dollar. Now you have $100 of fuel that you are putting into the car, but you're not going to use dollars. You're going to use something else. And out of all the currencies that exist out there, because you have it all right in your wallet, an equal amount of it, you're going to find that there is barely any enough to cover even 10%, 20% of the fuel that you are purchasing. right? That the majority of the fuel you purchase is going to have to be done in dollars because you literally have no other currency to purchase that much fuel with. That's the problem that people face, right? They say, "Oh no, we can do it in Chinese yuan." You can't. There's not enough Chinese yuan to facilitate all the trades. And then on top of it, you would have to have a safe and liquid asset like the U.S. Treasuries in order to be able to provide the world with that safe and or with the currency. And nobody's going to trust China in that magnitude. Hell, they hardly trust the United States. Can you imagine trusting any other nation? It isn't going to happen. Right? The dollar is not going to fade away. It is going to be the world reserve currency for a very long time. And I mean, and it's only because there's just nothing that is a competitor. The dollar will have to fail completely. It will at some point. Like, I'm not trying to say that the dollar is going to be awesome forever, but as far as any time in the near future, I have very, very little concern about the dollar failure or the BRICS nations taking over. Right? It's just not, I mean, I don't even, I mean, my concern level of it is so low, you know? What if the U.S. Treasuries fell? Yeah, but that's a what if, right? You're talking like, I mean, what if Bitcoin rose? What if, right? That's not the point. The point is that what is taking place is that the U.S. Treasuries are in incredibly high demand. Even Russia is buying them. You know that, right? Like, here the nation who is being sanctioned is buying U.S. Treasuries, because they know that it's the safe and liquid asset that the rest of the world is going to consider very close or as good as cash. There's very few nations out there that can do that, that have that standing behind them. Very few nations are willing to go into debt as deep as the United States has done. That's the problem, right? Because that's the only way you can provide the world with that safe and liquid asset. The U.S. Treasuries is by going into debt as much as the United States has done. Other nations aren't going to do that. They want to be producer savers because that's what builds a strong economy. They don't want to be debtor consumers. That's only what happens after you have fallen into luxuries and you can no longer manufacture for yourself. You have to buy the production of the world. This is what we're in right now. You can't solve that. The only way you solve that is to not buy new stuff from foreigners. That ain't going to happen. If you don't buy new stuff from foreigners, they're not going to buy your U.S. Treasury debt. They don't buy your U.S. Treasury debt. You're going to suffer in pain and misery and suffering. You know, that's just like, we have to go ever increasingly deeper into debt, producing a consumer to buy the world's production so that they will continue to use the U.S. dollar. That's it. Anything outside of that, and it's not going to happen. Actually, that's just the way it is. All right. I don't fear dollar failure, but I hold dollars over time loses value. Absolutely, it does. The dollar buys less over time. Yeah, absolutely, it does. But it also is the only thing that you really have to have on hand when the buying opportunity presents itself. Like, I think about it. I've said it so many times on this channel. Like, if you want to be in a position in which that you are separating yourself from the poor, if you want to be on the other side of the wedge, you have to be moving into capitalism, like to be a capitalist, meaning deploying your capital for a return, right? Investing in stocks, investing in bonds, investing in a business, doing, something of that nature where you can put money out and hopefully get a return off of it. Right? That's being a capitalist. Property ownership, buying property, renting that property out. I mean, I don't know how many times I have read over the Cantillon essay. These are the two people who live independently of the state. Everybody else has to work and be dependent on a boss or somebody else out there. So now I think about that. When you have such massive inequality that is happening, how do you solve the problem? Unless everybody decides that they're going to stop buying foreign production, you better learn to be a property owner capitalist. In considering that we now have technology that gives even an 18-year-old kid, probably even younger, I don't know, but somebody who is brand new to the workforce, the ability to download an online brokerage app and buy into stocks, buy into real estate investment trusts, buy into ETFs that, are on that expose them to a particular, group within an industry that they find, taking off, whatever. right? I mean, I don't even know how to quite describe it, but ultimately we have the ability to be in that position even as a broke nobody with no education and nothing going on. You can position yourself to be a property owner and capitalist. There is no reason why you can't. And the more you do it from an early age, the far easier it's going to be to get on that other side of the wedge. People who don't do that, people who are anticipating that their career to pay off their student loans, that they should be able to, have a decent life because that's the way that it was taught to them to do it, is probably going to end up being very frustrated and depressed. Being deep in debt, trying to pay off those student loans, trying to find a career inside of something in a field that they had studied, competing against everybody else who's done exactly the same thing. Right? It's just like, it's better to understand that, you have to take it back and say, okay, there's only two people out there, two people who live independently of the state, property owners and capitalists. Right? Being a business owner, doing good career. Hey, I mean, I work a retail job at a lumberyard. Like, I ring up people at a counter and then I go and load 2x4s up in the back of their truck. That's what I do every single day. Right? But I also have the mindset that says this place provides me health insurance, not only for me, but my entire family. I have access to cheap materials because I get an employee discount. I have a retirement fund in which my employer matches. Like, talk about an instant, like, how quickly can you double your money? Every paycheck. Bang, right? I drop some money in there, my employer matches it exactly. Now I have to wait till I'm 65 to get it, but that's beside the point, right? See, it's the mindset that I have. Some people are out there, oh no, I'm keeping my money or whatever. It was like, no, that dude's gonna match it as much as I can get in there, man. And this is the way that I think about it because I understand what it is that I need to do in order to make sure that I'm on the other side of the wedge, which is very difficult to do considering I have no college education, no degrees, no business, no family inheritance, none of that stuff happening. But yet here it is. I'm attempting to make it in one of the most expensive places in the entire nation in that same condition. Like, people are like, yeah, well, not all of us can have a YouTube channel. It's just like, yeah, but I had to work this YouTube channel like I had a second job. Anybody can go out there and get a second job. Is it fun? Absolutely not. Are you going to be exhausted? Probably. Are you going to be able to get yourself on the other side of the wedge if you do that? It's probably the only way. Right? And if you're young, you can do it even better and faster and easier if you just take advantage of the compounding interest. That is something that I wish I heard it, I knew it, I thought about it my entire life, didn't do anything about it. Man, if there was anything I could go back and do, it would be to take advantage of that. Time is by far the best gift that a young person has as an investor. It's the only thing that people who have the idea or wisdom or smarts or whatever, I don't even know if the people have that, but you don't have to think about it. You just put it in there. You can just, be disciplined to that idea, and then you can end up with a decent outcome because of it. And man, if there was anything that I could like offer up as far as advice, it would be to young people to take advantage of compounding interest in an early start and stick with it. All right, we got another super chat here. Let's see here. From William G. Atheist number 1, $5 Canadian Simon. It's not BRICS that are going to do this. It's UE and the basket of currencies right now over the Ukraine issue. Europe is pissed. Yeah, and I get it, man. And don't get me wrong. They're going to try and do something that is, I mean, they can say it all they want, right? But you also have to convince people that there is going to be some sort of return on the debt, meaning that if you borrow money, you're going to pay it back. Now, in order to be the world reserve currency, you have to be able to promise people that you're going to pay them back, and they have to believe you. And not only do they have to believe you, but everybody that you're dealing with has to believe it too. And this is the problem that I think most people are going to end up facing, is that although there is a great number of people who would want to use something outside of the dollar, but they have to agree on that singular thing. If it's a gold item, cool. If it's a particular nation's currency, cool, right? If it's Bitcoin, cool. right? But it has to be a singular thing. It can't be a bunch of different things because there's going to be transactions that won't occur because they're not going to be willing to transact in that particular currency. So it has to be universal, recognizable, right? And so that's where like gold and Bitcoin, these two things would serve for that purpose. The only problem is it's very limited. And if you all of a sudden have a very industrious nation who is taking advantage of the fact that there is a gold standard, they are going to hoard all that gold or Bitcoin for themselves, depriving the rest of the world the ability to do transactions. They will suffer in pain and misery because you have hoarded all their available transactional currency. You see? Now you can lend them out. Here's some paper. I'll lend you out paper, leveraging my gold and Bitcoin. But that's what the United States is already doing, right? And so this is why it's not going to happen. You know, the gold and silver or gold, silver, Bitcoin, these limited currencies can never return as a world reserve currency without the complete failure of the dollar first. If that was to fail, then okay, yeah, you can start introducing a good currency. That's Thayer's law kicking in. Right? But Gresham's law is going to always be there, no matter how you try to force your way around it. You can say, "Oh no, we're gonna write this contract out that says this is the currency that we're gonna use, and then we'll make laws that say, hey, we're gonna kill you if you don't use this particular currency, and if you use the other one, even worse, we're gonna kill your family for it." And all this threat is the reason that there is an underlying economic force. They wouldn't be able to even threaten if that wasn't under there. This other currency that's there that they're trying to prevent from being used is the economic force that's screaming out there saying, hey, what you are using is not the good currency. What it is the bad currency that's being forced upon you. And those guys with guns, they are the ones who are making it happen. But the underlying economic force says, hey, the people, if those guys with guns weren't here, that's the currency that they would be using. And it's to understand. See, the problem that was faced was a long time ago, is because the world was using gold, right? And the United States was producing all the world's greatest stuff, and we consumed all the gold. We took it all from the world. The world was buying our stuff, and we got their gold, and we had this great standard of living, and it was time to turn that gold back over to the rest of the world. That's the equilibrium of the gold. The gold standard always does this. This is boom and bust cycles. So as the United States was now getting into a position in which that they would have to relinquish that gold back out there to the rest of the world, which meant that we were going to fall into poverty and misery and painful experiences as our standard of living would deteriorate until we became competitive on the world scale again for production, which who knows how long or if that would even happen. The United States looked at that and they said, nah, I don't think so. We're going to sever ourselves from the gold standard. And since we're already using dollars anyway, and you're using dollars in the same place that you could have been using gold, but since you were accepting dollars in place of gold, we're just going to keep using dollars. And people were like, no, that doesn't sound good. And it was just like, well, what else are you going to do, starve? People were like, well, no, I want to do business. And they're like, well, yeah, I'm sure you do. So here you go. You're going to use dollars. And we're not going to use gold anymore. And then people were pissed about it, but since they wanted to eat, they went ahead and accepted dollars. We didn't have to do it. We chose to. Right? And even I myself think right now, you don't have to be on a dollar standard. You can go and be on your own gold standard. Right? You can go and transfer all your money, all your assets, everything you want into gold. We can all do it we can all do it together. We do not have to accept the dollar. The dollar is completely voluntary. People don't realize that. They don't want to believe that. They want to say, oh no, when it comes to paying taxes, taxes are voluntary too. I don't know if you know that. The whole system is completely voluntary. But if you start signing your name and making promises, well, then you're going to be subject to their laws, their system. It's best to understand that there is a higher authority that we carry above the government. And if you know how to carry that authority, you're not subject to that stuff. Or it doesn't seem like it's a frustration or a limitation to you anymore. It's just part of the way it is. And you work around it and you learn how to use it. Old Nighter knows what I'm talking about. You can't go pay for crypto food yet. See, this is again, like, I think differently of this. I think if you really, really wanted to use crypto, then what you do is you start networking with people who produce food and sell it for crypto. Like that's again, it's voluntary. You can't go to the store and force them to do it. They don't want to do that system. They want to play in this other system where they're subject to rules and regulations and taxes and all that other stuff. That's the system that they're playing. You don't have to go to them, right? I mean, I understand that they have food and that's where you know you're going to find your food at, but you don't have, there's all kinds of people out there who produce food. No, food comes naturally. Yeah. So again, it's like if you truly believe in the system or the not using of the system, then you go figure it out. It's not that it's I mean it's hard, but it's not that hard. Freedom isn't easy. So and I mean I don't know what else to say about it. It's just like you can't force other people to live the way that you want them to live. Learning how to navigate the public and private worlds has been one of the best things I've pursued. I agree, all-nighter. And to be honest, like it's one of those things that puts me in a position in which that I would love to really like push the envelope on that stuff. But then I think about I don't know. I guess I'm in fear of losing what it is that I've built inside of the system, which I shouldn't be in fear of when it comes to that. But you know, I guess knowing about it is really internalizing what it is has given me a lot of power, I think, just in itself, you know. Ronald, a sovereign is not a citizen is not a sovereign. They are at odds. Right? Freedom is a choice that we must stand in. Well, and here's the thing. I don't know, like when it comes to freedom, when it comes to constitutional rights and stuff like that, I found that a lot of people intuitively they say, "Yeah, I believe in the Constitution and I believe that, you know, we have these constitutional rights." And then on top of that, I think to myself, well, I really I think you believe it, but I don't think that most people really have understood what that means. Because every day we go out there and we vote for politicians who are acting directly against the Constitution. So therefore, how could we possibly be acting constitutional or believe in the Constitution when we vote for people who are behaving unconstitutionally? You see where I'm getting at? And I think this is probably better than 90% of the people. This is one of the reasons why I don't think we live in a constitutional republic, an American, we live in an illusion of one. And if you understand your rights truly, as All Nighter probably does better than anybody on this channel right now, if you truly understand that, then you can live as a free individual. Right? So I think about that. How many people out there really, really know their rights? Like how many people out there have studied the Constitution to the point that they can now like dictate the Bill of Rights back to know the first 10 amendments to the Constitution by heart without even thinking about it, right? Freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, the right not to have to quarter troops, lest during a time of war. The Fourth Amendment, which is the one that you only really need to know verbatim, right? The rights of the people to be secure in the person's houses, papers, and effects from unreasonable searches and seizures. And no warrant shall be given without probable cause from oath or affirmation, particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons and things to be seized. Show me the warrant. And as All Nighter has pointed out many times, show me a signed warrant, because the cops can go get a warrant. Doesn't necessarily mean it's been signed by a judge. So it has to be a signed warrant that they need to present. Otherwise, I'm not talking, right? And if I'm in my house and you're knocking on the door and you have a right to come in, there's nothing I can do to stop that. Right? So I'll be over here doing I'm doing the dishes. Okay, that's kind of funny. Sorry, Mom. But I'll be over here waiting, and if you need to come in and arrest me, then you're going to kick the door in because there's nothing I can do to stop that. But until then, my right says, no, I'm not opening the door and I'm not talking. I don't have to. The rights to due process, the rights of the accused, the 6th and the 7th, the rights of the accused in a civil case, the rights of the accused in a criminal case, and the rights of the accused in a civil case. 8th is cruel and unusual punishment. The 9th Amendment to the Constitution and the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, right, is the rights that are not specifically enumerated in the Constitution. Like, you have rights that are not going to be necessarily dictated within this Constitution. If everybody has the right to do it, so do you. They can't just all of a sudden just say, hey, man, everybody has the right, but we're going to all of a sudden say that you can't, right? So there's rights that are just not listed. And then a lot of people don't realize that the state has more power than they realize. Like, they think federal law is like the supreme law, and that's not right. See, state and local rights supersede federal law. And this is one of the reasons why you can have marijuana legal in some states, right? Even though it's federally illegal, but that's the transportation between states that it's illegal. They can't tell a state what it can do and not like that. So they can try and influence and stuff like that. But the 10th Amendment to the Constitution has already given us the power way over the Fed or federal government. So it's better to understand these rights in this fashion. That way you know what powers you really have. You know? Sovereign citizen thing is a real movement. I've seen them get arrested on videos. Oh no, it's a real thing. It's absolutely real. There isn't. I've seen it with my own eyes here in my own county, in my own courthouse. Okay. This isn't like a bunch of people who are making stuff up. Like, this is real, absolutely real, and seen it with my own eyes. Met, people who are pushing this idea in a serious way. Like, had my county sheriffs all lit up because of it. It was one of these, sovereign guys who got arrested in our county, and he started pulling this stuff off fast, and he was mouthing quick to the cops, and they didn't know how to deal with him at first. And then he ended up in the courtroom and like was pulling off a lot of stuff inside of that too. And like, I don't understand a lot of like the legal aspects of it, but I just remember the judge getting very frustrated, and I don't remember her slamming her hands down, but she slammed her pen down or something and said, "You are so rude," because he wouldn't let her just bully him around, right? Like, he was like in control of that courtroom almost the moment that he started speaking. It was so, I'd never seen anything quite like it. And again, like, I wasn't even quite sure what was happening there, because I couldn't even explain anything about what the legal aspects of it. But I just know that it was taking place. All right. I would not call that a Ponzi. Okay. Planned and engineered obsolescence also. Okay. Poor Simon can't catch a break with headliners. Hell no, man. I ain't buying no car unless it has a droopy headliner. Right? It's real, but there's a bunch to know enough to get in trouble and conduct themselves wrong. That's fine line to be truly sovereign. Yeah. And that's what I was finding there. All right, we have a constitutional right to travel, correct? I can drive a car and have no insurance registration as long as I state I am traveling. Well, Mel, I think that there is probably a case for that you could probably declared in such fashions, but you can avoid all that by getting the manufacturer statement of origin to your car. Like, if you had that, then the state has no right to you. That's absolutely whatsoever. Think about it, like your title to your vehicle. Like, people say, I got the title to the vehicle. Take another look at it. It doesn't say title. It says certificate of title, right? Because the title is actually called a manufacturer's statement of origin. It's like the birth certificate, right? so to speak, right? But if you own that manufacturer's statement of origin, it's as if that property is 100% yours. But if that manufactured statement of origin goes to the state, and then a certificate of title is issued, they have some part in it. This is where the requirement for registration, the driver's license, your insurance, and all this other stuff starts to come in, right? See, if you had that manufacturer statement of origin, you get pulled over, the cop says, hey, man, you don't have any of this stuff, I'm going to tow your vehicle. You can say, hey, man, this is mine, straight up, without any part in the state or anything involvement. This is as if it's my skin. And now, if you are a judge, juror, and executioner, right, what we are going through right now is not considered due process, and you cannot just take this vehicle from me. But if I am registered with the state, then they can do whatever they want in that fashion. See, this is the difference in understanding it. Like, you can go through all the little like details of trying to figure out how you're going to travel through the state without having insurance and registration and a license and all that other stuff. And I'm sure you can, right? I'm sure you can do that. Or you could take the short route and just try and get that manufactured statement of origin. Good luck trying to get that, right? So these things are very difficult to try and acquire in order to be a sovereign person out there conducting yourself outside of the state. And again, I'm not trying to teach any of this stuff. This is just stuff that I've learned over the years, right? Like, I have a driver's license, I have insurance, I do all the normal stuff like everybody else does. But understanding that it exists out there it gives you a much different way of conducting yourself. Like, here's an example. I will not even cross the street for the most part unless the sign says it's okay. See, here's the thing. If you cross the street and when the sign says it's not okay, now the cop can stop you and search you and talk to you and ask you what you're doing because you just broke the law. But if you're not breaking the law and they cannot articulate any kind of law that you have committing, or about to commit, then there's no point in even having any kind of conversation with them unless you choose to, unless you're having a, just a genuine conversation with them. But there's no reason to stop and talk to any official for any reason whatsoever if they cannot articulate what it is that you have done wrong. Right? If there's nothing there, then sorry, nope, continuing on my way. And when it comes to understanding even things like gun rights, like, I see a lot of people who open carry in my town, but I already know that the city ordinance says that, it's City Ordinance 5.010, right? And it says the open carry of a loaded firearm is illegal. They cannot tell you you cannot carry a firearm. That is against the Constitution. It would be illegal, and therefore any law that is in contrast to the Constitution is void. They can't tell you can't carry a firearm, but they can tell you can't carry a loaded firearm, right? And that's what City Ordinance 5.010 is saying, right? The open carry of a loaded firearm is illegal. If a cop sees it, they can stop you. They can search the firearm to make sure that it is not loaded, and that's it. There's nothing else that can be done. If that firearm is not loaded, they cannot ask you for your ID. They can't ask you where you're going. They can't ask you anything else. Like, they can ask, but you don't have to answer any of that stuff. You're not going to get arrested, and there's no warrant that can be issued. That's it. Like, you're done. All right. Greg, I heard something like that involving the securitization of assets by the lending authority. Even after you pay off your assets, they may have it securitized in something that can bust. I wonder what you guys are talking about. All right. Do you think now that they're about to regulate crypto market, it's being manipulated more and more? I don't know. Like, all this stuff about like what it is that's going to happen. I mean, I understand, like, as part of like following economics for a lot of people is to do investments. And that's really where like the what ifs come in, and that people really want to know, like, oh man, what if, And me, I don't really think about it in that fashion. Like, oh, my investments are already positioned right now. Like, I don't, like, news that comes in doesn't change my position on my investments. They're all going exactly the way that I had started them years ago in relation to what it is that I feel is taking place within my understanding of economics and monetary policy. I am not like concerned or worried or have major anticipations of anything, right? Like, I have done so well in like the crypto Bitcoin position that I had taken over the last 4 years, dollar cost averaging into it. I mean, I had to figure it was up like, I think in the last 4 years, the position is up like, I don't know, a little over 100%. Right? The Coinbase position that I had taken is up like 150%. Right? And these are both crypto markets that just absolutely killed it. And I didn't have any expectations of it. I'm just like, well, that seems like a smart way to go. And so I was just like, as far as being exposed to the crypto market, buying into Coinbase. But I bought all kinds of other stocks and ETFs and stuff, and they did okay. All right. But nothing like the crypto market did. So, I mean, it was just like I already like I'm not worried like whatever happens in the future, it'd only be that much more of a benefit. But I've already taken a position inside of crypto and already done quite well with it. I mean, I'm not I don't know how to put this, but I don't really think about investments when I'm thinking economics. It's not something that's running through my head. Like, what is this going to go? How much money is this going to be worth? Stuff like that. I mean, people made all kinds of money off of my videos when I was talking about lumber and some of the building supplies and what I saw was going on with it. There was people who was watching my videos and then making trades based on the information that I was talking about. And they came to me and were like, dude, thank you for that information. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I didn't do it. Right. Like that's not what I was attempting to do. Like I didn't want to hold those particular companies for long term, and so therefore I wasn't going to dollar cost average into them, and then I wasn't going to attempt to try and time it either. So like I was just like I wasn't interested. All right. All you need to make money on investments is inflation. I thought we would have deflation when I saw big players cashing out. Right now, Hansel, I see like Berkshire Hathaway is sitting on an insane amount of cash, right? So, like, Warren Buffett and his, big time, you know, big time investment, guru type behavior, or I don't know how to say, like, characteristic of them or something like that. I laugh about it because I just don't know how smart this guy really is or how much he was actually just able to position. I guess that's smart too, whether you position yourself appropriately or not. But anyway, he's supposed to be like really smart when it comes to stock market and investments and stuff like that. And they're sitting in cash. Like his company is sitting like in a huge stockpile of cash. And I'm assuming they're waiting for stock prices to come down so that they can take a better position inside of those things. Now, me personally, like I don't have any intentions on cashing out and I don't need that money for anything. So if the stock market goes down dramatically, it's just going to be buying opportunity for me. That's the only thing I'm looking at. Now, if I was 70 years old, right, thinking about my retirement, that would not even be what I would be thinking about. I would be very concerned about the prices going down or the stock market valuation going down and me not being able to have enough money to make it through my retirement, especially if I had a huge position as far as, inside of something like that. That would be a very different, mindset that I would take. If I was 18 years old, I would not even care. None. Zero. I would just like stock market crash, stock market rise would make very little difference to me whatsoever. If again, this is me now talking, if I was 18, if I was to go back and, add any kind of advice, I wouldn't care. I would not care one little bit. I would dollar cost average and just keep going right about what I was doing. Just mind my own business and just go right about to it. But again, if I had 70 years old, much different story. Treasuries are a better IOU than cash. Well, yeah, I mean, they're, I mean, anything that you're going to get any kind of return on would be better, right? Cash is no return. So, hello, UE. Hey, Trucker Bod, what's happening? All right, Niels with the buy silver, platinum, and crystallized osmium. I don't even know what that stuff is. All right, why are savings rates so low? And that's what's funny about it. It's like here's something that's interesting about interest rates is that when you read the Cantillon essay, high interest rates is the sign of a good economy. You know that? It shows that there's people out there who are eager to borrow money so that they could participate in the economy, buy materials to produce, manufacture, whatever it is that's going on. But when you see high interest rates, it's generally a sign of a good economy. Low interest rates is quite the opposite of it, and that it's a sign of a very slow economy and that there's not a lot of people out there demanding cash to buy materials. Now, what I find funny about that is now we don't look at it anywhere like that. We think about high interest rates slowing the economy down and low interest rates speeding the economy up. But this is quite opposite of the way Cantillon described interest rates. If I could, I would invest in Chinese airplane builder Comac. They will grow fast or go bankrupt. I'm getting 4.1% yield on PayPal savings. And that's another thing. Like, I think, okay, so a 4% return. Like, if you have $100,000 that you tied up for a year with PayPal, they're going to give you 4 grand. Right now, don't get me wrong. That's a lot of money. Like 4 grand is a lot of money. I mean, I would love to have a 4 grand check, but that seems to be like pretty low on what a return could be with $100,000. Like if you had $100,000 and you deployed that towards some other kind of like investment like property or something, and you did it in the right way, then you could have a return on that that's going to be far better than 4%. Now, there's no guarantee to that, and if you buy the wrong property, it could actually go the opposite way with it. But to me, like even 4% isn't that much. It's not like, I think it would be good if you're like doing some of it in that fashion. It's just like I have no other idea what I would do with this 100 grand, and I'm just gonna sit on it. I'd rather have the cash or whatever. Then getting a 4% return is better than nothing. But if you have $100,000 and you could be deploying that towards other investments that could be getting a better return, like I have very little cash right now. Like I pretty much deployed most of my cash into paying off debt because I do still have a little bit of credit card debt from some, doesn't matter, from medical stuff. But anyway, once that's done, then I'll be back into investments. But the cash that I hold is very little. It's just enough to have some emergency and some, and to pay bills without issue. But outside of that, I don't really keep a whole lot. I almost always put it towards, something else. Now there are times in which that I will stack up the cash, right? And I will, it's just like I'm not feeling good about, deploying cash into those particular things. I need to hold on to it for whatever purpose. Like maybe it's even a personal issue that's coming up. Um, but that's the way I kind of look at it. And when you think about like a return on your money, unless you are just absolutely not needing it for anything, a 4% return doesn't seem that great. Yeah. I mean, that's me personally. Property is tangible, Brody, unlike say crypto. All right, Greg, I'm not sure I agree. Yeah, I'm big into crypto. I have very little expectations over it, but I'm pretty happy with what's happened. Now, if I can say one day convert my crypto purchases into property ownership, because right now, like the amount that I had invested into crypto would not get me a property, but now what my crypto is worth could totally get me another piece of property, right? So like I'm in a position right now that I could cash out of that stuff and then go put down on, whatever, pretty much whatever I would want. I mean not whatever, but you know what I mean. Okay, we're back. We're back. Tangible income producing assets are the best assets. Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, all the crypto stuff, that's all like speculative. Getting into Coinbase maybe a little bit more on the investment side of it because you're actually investing in a business, but for the most part, anything that you're buying that has no return to it as far as like, a dividend yield or rent or something of that nature, it's a speculation. And that's all it really is. So yeah, I kind of agree. Let's see here. Hold on, let me get back up here. Excited Box says there was a recent case where a press article crashed the price of a stock because the word bankrupt was used. The word bankrupt was used. Yeah, and again, like that's, I mean, did it stay crash? I mean, what do you like? Those are the type of things that I have a tendency to just kind of back away from and avoid. Like all the, pump and dump schemes, coming through Reddit as far as like, whatever stock that they're pushing at the time. All those things, I have a tendency to just avoid those and not even pay attention to the news articles or anything going on with them. I got subject to a pump and dump from Max Kaiser when he was trying to push silver and crash JP Morgan. pushing silver up to $50 an ounce. It was like basically saying, hey, we're going to push it to 500. I was so on board with it, with the idea of it. Even have a 10th ounce coin with his image on it, right? Max Kaiser's little face up on there. And when I saw it go from $50 an ounce in 2011, or just shy of $50 an ounce, all the way down to the teens, I said to myself, I will never fall for another pump and dump, ever. If it's getting jacked up on TV and people are talking about it and it's a subject of conversation, I'm out. I'm out. First we pump, then we dump. It's far easier for intangibles to go to zero. What type of inflation expectations can we see coming from the DOGE dividend? Truckerbot, I don't even think about it, because it's all a credible threat, right? And so, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try to come up with some fascination of like what it is that this could possibly do for the economy or the people or anything else until it has actually happened. Right? Because until then, people the more that they talk about it, the more that people are going to believe that it's happened, and the more that they are going to conduct themselves as if it has already happened, with anticipation of getting that. Right? And so it's like, is it a credible threat? Absolutely it is. Until it actually happens, there's really it can have a profound impact on the economy just by the communications of it. That's part of what we were talking about earlier today inside of the Fed speech. It's all about that, And we're going to break that speech down later on this afternoon. I will put a link, I'll schedule a live stream later, but it's a members only live stream. So if you haven't become a member of the channel yet, consider becoming a member. $1 a month, you'll have access to all those member only live streams. And you'll be able to join us tonight on our members only live stream. Ada Grubb, thank you so much for the $10. Look. We have a broken monetary system that broke down in August of 2007 and has been fixed and has never been fixed. Nobody ever even knows that it was broken because everybody's been dazed by case and Fed policy continue. Okay, so A to Grubb, I would agree with part of that. Right? I would agree that the monetary system failed at that point, but they knew it was coming, right? I mean, this is something that Ben Bernanke had communicated 6 years ahead of that, so that they knew that they were going to hit the lower bound of zero. We were talking about it earlier today. This is why they came up with the gold machine. The gold machine is now their monetary policy, which is the communication that they use. Philip Jefferson just did a speech yesterday talking about that exact thing. I left a link down in the description for you. So their monetary policy hasn't come to an end. It's not broken. The way that we understood it, as far as adjustment of monetary policy through interest rates, that part is broken. Their communication about it works perfect. Absolutely. In fact, it works better than they could ever have possibly imagined. All right? But our understanding of monetary policy through interest rate adjustments is broken. That part does not work. Right? So when they adjust interest rates, it doesn't have the impact on the economy like it once had. Their communications about it has a major impact, super major impact. And this is what I've been trying to share on my channel over and over again. Right? Is that you don't even even Ben Bernanke said it, right? 98% about what they say about their talk and 2% about their actions. I totally agree with that. Their actions don't reflect what happens in the economy. They lowered interest rates and mortgage rates went up. How many people were predicting that? I mean, maybe some people out there, but every single real estate agent across the entire country was pumping every single customer and seller up with the idea that the Federal Reserve was going to be lowering rates and that there was going to be this flood of buyers coming into the market. Did not happen, right? So understanding the monetary policy through the communications aspect then leads you to understand that they are not using interest rate adjustments, because interest rate adjustments doesn't work. That part is broken, right? But the communication about it, That works better than anybody could ever have possibly imagined. All right, we got another one here. Ada Grub with $20. Man, dude, thank you so much for loading me up, man. And fiscal stimulus and everything else, and nobody stopped and looked at the original sin. By the way, if you can see the sideways economic growth in all charts, you will notice we are not in a real economy. Well, okay, a real economy, I think that's a matter of opinion, right? And I really appreciate the super chats, bro. I really do. Thank you so much for the support. But I think like understanding that a real economy is all about what it is that you are giving it meaning to. Like to me, like this economy, I don't have any problems with it, right? I mean, I don't like the fact that we don't have a strong middle class built from production and savings. Like that bums me out. I would much rather have it a different way, but I know that whatever I wish and hope and dream for isn't going to happen. I don't care to try and change the world to make that be a place that exists. That's not what I'm going to do. Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and recognize what it is that I see going on out there, recognize that there is a major inequality gap that is growing and it's going to get worse. And that if I don't do something about it quickly, then I'm going to end up having to suffer the consequences from that. That's what I am doing. Right? So I look out there and I say, hey, man, yeah, there could be better ways. There should be other ways. There should be a different way. There's not going to be. There's going to be this way. This is what's happening. And this is the only thing that we can do is to try and understand exactly why it's taken place the way it is and to position ourselves accordingly for it. That's it. That's the only thing we can do. Right? And now I would, like, again, I would love to vote for people who can make a difference. There's not going to be anybody. Right? Understanding the Cantillon effect, understanding that the separation between the rich and the poor happened because we were a powerful manufacturing state that raised our standard of living, that made us uncompetitive against the rest of the world. That's not something that can be fixed. Right? And I mean, I would love to say differently. I would love to just come up with this like a beautiful kumbaya moment where we can all get along and say, hey, man, we're going to live this wonderful, awesome life together and it would be all wonderful. Like, I would love to imagine something like that. But, the realistic in me, the realist in me says, hey, man, you better like look out there and see what's really going on so that, you can deal with the storm. When you're out there on the river, like I live along the Columbia River, right? Every year you hear about a commercial fishing vessel going down or something, and it just tears everybody up in the community because they all know the people who are on that boat. And I'm not saying every year, but it's pretty common. They don't call it the graveyard of the sea for nothing. There are so many downed vessels outside of the Columbia River, it's unreal, right? Cape Disappointment is where the Coast Guard goes to train their people for rough sea, conditions and stuff like that. So this is about as bad as it gets here. Now, when you're out there on that river, if you're one of those, if you're the captain of a freighter who's bringing that ship up the Columbia River, you're in the exact same conditions as the person who's sitting on a 20-foot, just fishing vessel, just, something for sport fishing vessel. You're both in the exact same conditions. You're both dealing with the exact same environment. There's no difference in anything as far as that goes. However, the way that they conduct themselves is going to be incredibly different, right? The things that they are looking at as far as the cautions that they are, looking at as far as what's concerning them are going to be completely different depending on if you're the captain of that 20-foot vessel or if you're the captain of that giant freighter. And this is the way that most people should look at economics. Because most people look at economics as if all these vessels that are out there on the river are the same, that we're all in the same condition, dealing with the same problems and fears and, hopes and dreams and whatever is going on. We all feel that it's the same because we're all in the same river, right? But we're not in the same boat. And that's the difference. So to understand the economy for yourself, as opposed to being like a thing out there and external, right? We have to look at it as we're operating our own boat, right? That guy who's operating the freighter, he doesn't think like I do. He doesn't look at the things I do. He's not planning the things I do. He's not going to conduct themselves the way I do, all right? And that is the same for everybody out there when it comes to looking at the economy. You should be looking at it just like that. I have my own economy to deal with. My economy is going to be far different. The debts that I have taken out, the position that I have taken, all these things are going to be so different from person to person that any kind of change within the administration on what it is that they plan on doing with the banking system and regulations is going to affect me differently than it affects you, depending again on how I position myself. Now, if you positioned yourself in a way that that regulation change is going to have a major impact on your life, then I would see how you would have a major concern about that and want other people to be concerned about it too, because it is elevated into your life, that difference and change. But if I am not paying attention to that and say, hey man, that regulation change, whether it happens or doesn't impact my life because I haven't given any meaning to it and haven't positioned myself to have any meaning from it, then it doesn't have any meaning to me. That's all there is to it. Just like every single thing that Biden ever said had no meaning to me. I didn't give it any meaning. I didn't care to hear it, and I didn't care what it was that he said. So I mean, I just wasn't interested because none of it seemed important to me. I had better things to go and research and look at and study than to listen to something that had no sense. Much like most of what I hear on, the political atmosphere today. None of it makes any sense. None of it's real. It's all what ifs. We're going to do this. And I was like, dude, if you were like, a real man doesn't threaten people. They just go out and do it. Right? And that's where I find this very like, oh man, you better listen or else. And I'm like, dude, no, just go do it. Right? Just go do it and say, well, maybe you shouldn't have done that and we wouldn't have done this. And then people would listen to you. People would take you very seriously. Right? But no, if you're, basically, if you're a chicken, you just go and you just mouth off a bunch of stuff, and then when it comes to the point that you can't deal with it anymore, you fight. It's just like it's almost like, I don't know, a coward way of looking at it. All right, the world operates threats. Yeah. Talk is cheap. All right. All right, and I'm a life vest. Water is fine, fellows. I'm in a life vest. Yeah, there you go. Good analogy. Well, thank you, Truckerbot. I appreciate it. I think that analogy actually works out pretty well. Once people start looking at it like that, and they start realizing, yeah, we are all in the same river out here. We're all dealing with the same environment. We got the same weather conditions. We got the same rough waters. We got all that stuff is the same, right? But how we conduct ourselves because of the position that we have taken on the boat that we are in is going to be far different. Like nobody's going to be making the same decisions. Everybody's going to think differently, My world operates on treats. Good analogy. I was thinking of it similarly myself. Thanks, James. Well, you guys can go use that. So credible threats, a coward's way. Well, I mean, yeah, honestly, but I mean, what else are we gonna do? I mean, we don't have honest, right? I mean, there's nothing out there that's honest. It's like that doesn't exist. It's not fair. So it's not honest and it's not fair. So what am I gonna do? Get mad about that and say, oh man, it shouldn't be this way. And I'm like, all right, it shouldn't be this way. I don't know what to do about it, right? I understand for what it is. I understand that this is the attempt that the Federal Reserve is going through to continue on with their existence. This is a matter of their survival. Like our survival, that's not part of their, they don't care, right? They don't care about our survival. That's up to us to figure out. Because this isn't a fair game. Their problem that they're trying to figure out is what they were going to do with the fact that they could not find an inflationary scenario that was going to destroy their monetary system. Destroy the way that they conducted themselves. They had to come up with a whole new way, and part of that was literally tricking the people. So yeah, it's a very coward way of going about it, but what else were they going to do? Okay? I don't like it. I would say, hey man, why don't you guys come up and actually tell people what flexible average inflation targeting is? No. Why? Because they're chicken shit. So whatever. I mean, I'm not here to judge, whether or not they're good or bad people. That part doesn't make any difference to me. Right? I mean, it's like they can be good or bad, and it still doesn't make any difference to me. What I have to do is figure out what it is that they are planning on doing as far as their monetary policy goes, considering that it was no longer an effective tool to adjust interest rates. And now they use their words as to listen to the communications that comes from the Federal Reserve so that I can figure out what it is that's going to happen with my economy. Right? And that's what we're all here trying to do, is figure out what it is that we need to do for ourselves and our families and our positions. I mean, if you have 5 rental properties, you're going to be thinking of things so differently than what I'm thinking about, because I don't have 5 rental properties. Right? I won't even think about things like that, that you're thinking of. All right. It's not true. I guess that's Brody. It used to be if you do a military action for the empire, you would get a cut of the spoils. Simon, would you please explain, here we go, I like this, why property ownership is so important in principle? What makes owning a house different from owning any other hard assets because of the rental income capability? Well, I think that would probably be like, the easiest way to understand it. And also, give me one second, Millwright Prepper, thank you for joining the channel. We're going to come back and do a live stream later on this afternoon, breaking down the recent Fed speech given by Philip Jefferson, talking about the communication being the important monetary policy tool and how that impacts asset prices. So be sure and come back for that member-only live stream later tonight. Property ownership, I mean, I think that the idea behind it is that everybody needs a place to be, right? And so if you were, okay, let's kind of let's take it to another analogy here and see how important it is to acquire property. Now, let's say, for example, we had a particular area that represented the entire country or the entire world, whatever. And there's like a square, right? The square is divided up evenly into 100 squares. That represents all the land and all the property that's out there. There's 100 people. Each person gets an equal amount, okay? So now this is something that we have to consider from this point on. Everybody right now in this hypothetical situation has exactly the same amount of land. Right? And obviously there's going to be conditions of lands that would make it more valuable than others, but we're just going to assume that it's the same for everybody. Everybody's equal, and boom, we're going to start life off at exactly on the same even level playing ground. Okay. Now, because people are different in their behaviors, they're going to act differently upon their land. And now let's just assume that two people get together, right? And they join forces, and now they have 2 acres between the two, or 2 pieces of land between the two of them, right? And then they have kids. Say they have 10 kids between the two of them, right? Well, now all this land is now being divided up against the 100 people and their 10 kids. Now those 10 kids will never be able to go and acquire the amount of land that their parents did, because there's just simply not enough of it out there. Now, they can divide up what was once the parents' land and divide it equally amongst the kids, and then they would all get their little tiny portion of land, but now they are very much smaller property owners. Right? So now all of a sudden, there's an inequality that's taken place here. Everybody else has this big chunk of land, but because their parents had 10 kids and they divided it up against everybody, now they all have this small piece of land. Now, let's go to another group, and this guy says, hey, I didn't have kids, and neither did my brother, and my brother passed away, and he left me his land. So now he has 2 pieces of land, far, far more than what the family with 10 kids had when they left their piece of land to all the 10 kids. So you see how this inequality just grew massively between the two? Like this guy, all of a sudden, now he has this massive amount of property comparatively to this guy who has this little tiny piece of property. And this is how the inequality is it goes worse and worse, right? This guy with the 2 acres, he'd be like, well, I'm not doing anything. I don't have any family. I don't have any expenses. And I rent out my property, and I rent it out for so much that I'm actually able to buy some of those little kids' properties because they really can't afford anything on their little tiny piece. They can't produce enough off of it. So I'm buying their little pieces of land, and I'm making them pay rent. See how the landowner takes control, right? Because they have the land, and with that land, they're able to leverage up the ability to acquire more money, which then gives them the ability to buy land, even more land. Right? And this is the importance of it, is to understand that getting a hold of being a property owner in the early days and stacking it up and getting more in that portfolio, right? Building up those rental portfolios. This is the reason why. It's because if you're not doing it, there's other people who are. And those people who are separating themselves far, far, far away from the people who are not. So I don't know if that's a good analogy to describe why it's important to become a property owner, but that's the way that I see it as far as like the easiest explanation, is that if we had equally divided this up against everybody, immediately there would be a separation that starts to take place. The inequality would immediately start. So it's important to have the mindset that I'm going to be on the side of the property owner, not the one who's going to be like, oh, I want to change government so that it suits my way of life, right? I mean, I'm like, okay, you guys go protest, go have fun with that. I'm going to go over here and try and figure things out. Inequality didn't start already. Inequality started the day that there was human existence. Right? There was some guy out there who had a better skill at killing deer than the other person did, and he had more meat, and therefore he had more women, and therefore he had more abundance. Right? And that was from the very beginning. All right, we humans are apex predators. All right, great answer, Simon, but you discussed land ownership. Is that the same? Well, I mean, I think it's just being in that position, whether because you never really own the land, but I think if you can be in an advantageous position of that land, like even if you're renting land and you use that land to produce a product that then profits, like, you may not be the land owner, but you can still profit off the land. But you'll never be the one who's living independently. You will always be dependent upon that landowner, right? So yeah, absolutely. Land ownership is by far, like, even if you don't have anything. Like, I mean, in my mind, I don't look at like material possessions like driving, a Ferrari or something around being like rich. To me, that's not rich. Rich to me is living your life freely. Right? Like, there's so many people out there. Like tomorrow, I could take the day off and go do whatever I want. Like, I am not responsible for anything, anywhere, doing anything other than my family, making sure that, my kids are fed or something like that. But I could go to the beach, I could go drive around, I can do nothing, I can sit around, I can make videos, I could go to work. Doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want tomorrow. There is nothing that holds me back from doing anything I want. Very little responsibilities when it comes to that. There's other people out there, if they were to attempt to do that on a Monday morning, they would absolutely destroy everything that they got going on. And they are very wealthy individuals with no freedom whatsoever. Right? Like, it doesn't sound so great. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Bull, I don't get that. Like, that is probably one of the strangest statements that I've ever heard somebody actually try to believe. You'll own nothing and be happy? Like, I already own nothing. That's not a threat. It's just somebody who owned nothing. It was just like, okay, obviously you don't know me very well. It was just like, I already own nothing, And so, since I spent a great deal of my life being depressed, you'll own nothing and be happy sounds wonderful. All right. Steve, did you lose all the rentals? All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Yep, I love that movie. That was a quote from Animal Farm, which is a great movie. I have that movie. And we actually watch that probably once or twice a year. We'll pop that in and let that play because it's, let it play for like an afternoon or something. It's a good movie. It really, shows the rise and fall of how socialism starts off as like a good intention, but then, corruption and greed and everything else comes in, and inequality and hatred and resent and all that other stuff builds. All right. Let's see here. You'll own nothing and be happy is just actualization. It works. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to it. I just keep like I don't get it. Like I mean, that stuff doesn't. I guess it's because I just don't fear the new world order. Like I don't fear government. Global government. I have like almost no fear of these people whatsoever. And like other people, they have actual major anxiety concern that is elevated when they think about this. And I think about those people and I'm like, you know what? Bring it, man. Like I have very little concern, or am I in fear of any of those people? Not even. And I love it when people are like, oh, you should fear them. And I'm like, you go live in fear. I ain't going to live that way. All right. Only poor say that the money is not important and that money does not make you happy. Rich, buddy, I disagree with that. Money, like, I disagree, right? And the reason why I disagree is because money doesn't make you happy because what is it that money actually did? Is it gave you the feeling that you had the ability to do something. That feeling already exists inside of you. Like, I have the ability to go out and buy a brand new Camaro right now. For the longest time, I wanted a brand new Camaro. Like, I dreamed of it. Like, I envisioned myself driving a Camaro, like, being cool, listening to music loud, doing all that other stuff. I really dreamed of that day when I couldn't do it. All right. Because I had given it meaning that I have no ability to do that. So it would be awesome to have that in my life. Not so much the actual thing, the ability to do it. Right? Once you have the ability to do something, then it's not so important anymore. That's where I think, like, a lot of times, money is not the important part of it. What money can do and the feeling and the meaning that you have given it does change when you have the money. But you don't need the money to have that feeling. The feeling already exists inside you. Right? But once you have the money, then it's easy to feel that way. Wow, now I have the money to buy a Camaro. Well, I ain't going to spend it on a Camaro. I don't want the Camaro anymore. I got the ability to buy a Camaro. There's something else I'd rather have in my life. I'd rather have rental properties, right? Why? Because I don't have rental properties in my life and I don't feel exactly I can have them in my life. So now I don't have this feeling of wanting a Camaro because, right, the feeling of having it was only there when I couldn't do it. But knowing that even if I didn't have the money today, that feeling was still inside me. Being able to do something or have it is the same as being able to, as doing it, right? And now I know a lot of people are out there, no, man, driving the Camaro is going to be so much better than not having the Camaro. Yeah, it probably is until you're used to it, and then it ain't a big deal anymore, right? So at first, yeah, it's going to be awesome, just like anything else out there. Because everything is about the meaning you give it. When you first get it, the meaning is I got a new car. I'm really excited about driving it. I'm super pumped up that I got this thing. And then 6 months down the road, you don't have that feeling anymore. It's all gone. Right? So no, money isn't it. It's like food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. That's wealth. That's it, right? If you can have a steak, a view, and music, and if you were to provide that, like I don't know what else it would be that I would say, hey man, I could have this better, right? That would be it. That's my better. Now, I get it. A lot of people are like, oh, dude, man, don't you want to have fancy vacations and fancy stuff and all kinds of stuff? And it would be like, yeah, I guess a fancy vacation would be cool, right? But is it something that I dream about, like going and no, not really. Right? I mean, there's plenty of cool places that I've been to. I just went down to Vegas and hung out with some really awesome people. Hardly cost me anything, And surprisingly, it was cheaper than I thought it was going to be to get down there and back. But that was my experience that I thought was like, I mean, hey, this is fun. This was great. I didn't need it to be enhanced by any more money. I don't know what more money would have done. All right. Money is survival and freedom. You can't buy a thrill. I think you could buy a thrill, but I don't think it's as fun. Hey, uneducated economist, good to see you again. Do you have any thoughts on how artificial intelligence is going to change the economy? Also, what do you think about declining demographics? Well, declining, like, Kane, I think the first part of the question is a big what if that anybody can, you can sit there and just imagine all kinds of scenarios all day. But the second part of it, I think that's a huge impact to the issues that we are now facing with the idea of the monetary policy and the idea that the low neutral interest rate was part of the reason, excuse me, part of the reason for the decline in the neutral interest rate that declined close to zero was demographics, and that you have like this older population that is now like slowing the economy down or slowing the global growth down kind of idea. Once that eventually shifts, and basically like all the old people die, we are going to have a shift in the way that the economy operates, right? When you have like a growing retirement community as opposed to a rising younger community, that should be a pretty major shift in the way that people conduct themselves in the economy itself. Like, retired people don't buy what young people buy, kind of thing. But again, like how far out in the future that actual shift is noticed, or if we are already noticing it today. Like, is this the signs of it? These expensive homes, this lack of family formation, almost like a doom loop sort of scenario that's happening. This is something that my wife and I were discussing. Some economist was talking about Portland being in a doom loop, and that, the rich, wealthy people are leaving the area, which is making the tax revenues and everything more expensive or less available, and things, services becoming more expensive or less available in itself because of this shift in the way that people are behaving, and, the new money essentially that was coming in from these rich, wealthy elite, how they're leaving. This is going to end up creating like this doom loop where it just creates a cycle where it just keeps spiraling downward. Yeah. Again, like, I think, a lot of times when you hear those things, it's just like there's almost like no end. Like it'll just eventually just go until there's like chaos and misery for everybody to be found. And I don't necessarily believe that to be the case, right? So although we do find where we have a situation in which that the demographics and stuff like that of Portland area is leaving, creating what is appearing to be this doom loop, eventually prices of apartments and buildings and stuff like that will then start attracting investors and people back into the area, because once the prices get down to a certain level, that's where they start jumping back in. Anyway, but as far as the artificial intelligence part of it, yeah, that's like, I don't know, we can come up with all kinds of what ifs on that, and I try not to look at it as being a devastating thing. I find it to be an enhancement. Very much like all technologies enhance our very way of life. It makes our life easier, right? It makes it more convenient. A lot of people look at it and say, oh no, man, I'm going to lose my job, right? And I was just like, well, yeah, you probably lose your job in that particular field, but then it gives you the ability to go out there and pursue something else that's better for your life. I mean, if your job was so mundane, such in a position in which that a computer program can come in and do your job better than you, then you probably need to find something better in your life to pursue. Find a better passion or something else, right? And I mean, that might suck, and I know it sucks to hear, but I'm kind of facing something that myself. Like, the retail space is eventually going to fade away to online purchases. And even like the skill as a salesman that I have selling building supplies, like selling a window, selling doors, selling, all these particular things, it's getting down to the point where I just click a computer program to put all the numbers into the system that then produces the window or door. Like, I'm literally acting like a middleman for what the customer could do. So what's the point of me doing this? Right? It's because, well, they need this transition. So, I'm the salesman. I'm the one who's just like ordering the windows, but eventually they'll just eliminate me right out of it, since the computer program's really the one that's ordering the windows, and I'm just literally just entering in the numbers, very much like the customer could do, and I could be eliminated. This is what's happening. Like, this is going to happen to me eventually, and I'm already aware of it. Like, I can see it. Like, I'm participating in that happening right now. As other people look at it as convenience, and I'm like, oh man, look at this, I'm fading away, right? But that's okay, because I understand that I can use my skills as a salesman to go do something else, all right? And, maybe even promote my own channel, which I should be doing anyway. All right, my wife's home, kids home. I'm going to call it quits. We're out here for an hour and 45 minutes with 196 people watching. Oh, back on. with the support to the channel and everything you do. I can never thank you guys enough. And then also supporting the channel by becoming a member of the Uneducated Economist, where you'll have access to the member-only live streams. Again, we are going to do a member-only live stream tonight, breaking down more of the credible threat theory in a speech that was given by Phillips Jefferson just yesterday, talking about how the communications coming from the Federal Reserve impact asset prices. You don't want to miss this, guys. This is where the real information is found, right? All that media, mainstream media, propagandized stuff, it will mislead you, misinform you, and, you know, cause you to be very frustrated with everything that's going on out there. But once you understand and recognize the monetary policy, the way that we have broken it down from the Federal Reserve itself, things aren't so confusing anymore. And in fact, they get to the point where you're just more of accepting of the situation, and then it makes it much easier to make the appropriate decisions based on the appropriate conditions that we are in for what you are facing yourself, because we're all in different boats out on the same river. Right? Okay, Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.